Imagine pressing the crosswalk button, every single day, fully knowing it's completely broken.
Like the wiring is just totally dead.
Exactly. You stand there, the traffic is rushing by, and you know the circuitry inside that little metal box was disconnected like years ago.
Right.
And yet you press it anyway. I mean, why would you do it?
Well, it's a phenomenal premise, really.
Right.
We're looking at a whole ecosystem.
Yeah.
Because you can't just draw a sharp geometric line through a lived-in forest and expect the roots to just stop growing across it, right?
Oh, for sure.
But that is often exactly how we treat urban development.
Welcome to another deep dive. Whether you're, catching up on a new perspective for your own community, or you're just insanely curious about the hidden forces that make cities pulse and breathe, we are so glad you're here.
Absolutely.
Today, our source material is this deeply textured literary narrative called the Meridian Carnival. And our mission is to explore the anatomy of a neighborhood facing, well, massive transformation.
So total upheaval.
Right. We're going to uncover the invisible structures that hold a community together when market forces threaten to displace it.
And the narrative frames this tension so beautifully. It contrasts two very distinct forces. We're looking at the what they call the horizontal axis of community connection, so the lateral, messy, daily ways people rely on each other.
Right, the everyday stuff.
Exactly. And that's versus the vertical aspiration of a brand new towering glass development. So it's far more than a story about a building.
Yeah, it really is.
It's a profound exploration of the very nature of value, how we define memory, and how those abstract concepts physically manifest in the streets we walk every day.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the text sets the scene in a neighborhood known locally as The Drift.
The Drift.
Yeah, and it's facing intense gentrification.
Yeah.
That pressure is personified by a massive new glass tower rising at its western edge, which casts this literal and metaphorical shadow over the older buildings.
A very heavy shadow.
Totally. Now, before we get too deep, I want to set some ground rules for you listening. This text presents a clash between two entirely different languages.
Right.
On one side, you have the language of market inevitability and capital, and on the other, you have the language of community persistence.
Which is very different.
Exactly. Our goal here isn't to take a political side on real estate development. We're just impartially exploring how these two forces interact in the source material, objectively looking at how they shape the people living inside them.
And I think it's important to note that the text avoids painting simple villains.
It really does.
Instead, it focuses heavily on how a community functions organically through daily, seemingly insignificant rituals, contrasted with that looming, impersonal presence of institutional change.
Right, and it starts with this incredibly vivid character named Alphabet.
Oh, I love Alphabet.
He's amazing. He's this long-duration witness of the neighborhood, always pushing this custom-welded cart around the block. And Alphabet has this overarching theory of what he calls the braided hierarchy. He explicitly pushes back against Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Right, and just to make sure we're all on the same page, Maslow's hierarchy is that classic psychological pyramid.
The one from Psych 101.
Exactly. It dictates that humans have to secure their absolute basic survival needs at the bottom, food, water, physical safety, before they can move up the pyramid to focus on higher level things.
Like love or belonging.
Right. Belonging, art, community. It's a very linear bottom-up progression.
Alphabet looks at his neighborhood and says, no, that is not how it works on this block. Here, it's braided.
Braided together.
Yeah. The bread baking down the street, the music playing from a third-floor apartment window, the subtle nods people give each other on the corner. These aren't luxuries you get to only after you pay rent.
No, they're intertwined strands of survival.
Exactly. If you pull on one strand, all the other strands move with it. You can't separate the food from the community.
And the text gives us these brilliant, specific neighborhood anchors to illustrate these strands. We meet Ngoc, a Vietnamese baker.
Oh, her story's so good.
It is. Her daily, repetitive act of baking bread is described by Alphabet as an argument against everything cold.
Oh, love that phrase.
Right. Keeping her oven warm is a literal stance against the sterilization of her block. And then you have Caesar, the barber down the street.
Yeah, his shop isn't just for haircuts.
Not at all. His barber chair acts as a public confessional and, a town hall. There is an entire institution of community governance happening under the radar right in his shop.
But my absolute favorite detail regarding these strands is a woman named Lemon.
Ah, Vera.
Yes, her real name is Vera, but everyone calls her Lemon because she wears this aggressively bright yellow coat every single day. She is the one pressing that broken crosswalk button.
Every single morning.
Right, and she knows it's a placebo.
Yeah.
She knows the light operates on a city-mandated timer, and her physical input does absolutely nothing to the electrical grid.
Nothing at all.
But she pushes it anyway because it is a real action in an uncertain system.
The real action in an uncertain system, I mean, the psychological weight of that phrase is just staggering.
It's like pressing refresh on a frozen web browser.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
You know, clicking the button a dozen times might not technically be fixing the back-end code, but the act of clicking is a refusal to just sit there and accept being frozen.
Yeah, it's an insistence on your own agency.
Exactly. You are demanding that the system acknowledge you.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this refusal is exactly where the organic language of the neighborhood collides with the institutional language of the tower. The tower's construction represents what the text brilliantly calls the passive voice of progress.
The passive voice, yeah.
Think about the language used in city zoning meetings. It's always phrased passively, like, the building was bought, the residents were displaced, the area was revitalized.
It completely removes the people who actually made the decision.
Exactly. It removes the active human decision makers from the sentence. The grammar itself absolves anyone of responsibility.
Wow, yeah.
But, and this is important, the text makes a crucial point to humanize the tower's perspective as well.
Through Pavel, right, the crane operator.
Yes, Pavel. He eats his 2 sandwiches up high in the crane's cab every single day. And from that extreme altitude, he actually notices the organic, swirling pattern of the neighborhood's annual block party, the carnival.
He sees the big picture.
He sees the physical geography of people actively choosing to be near each other. So the tower and the drift aren't depicted as inherently malicious enemies trying to destroy one another.
Right, they just speak entirely different vocabularies.
Precisely. The market uses numbers, risk assessments, profit margins, and numbers simply cannot account for the untranslatable words of human continuity.
You can't put the smell of Nagak's bread into a spreadsheet.
You really can't.
So if the market's language is codified in spreadsheets and financial projections, the neighborhood realizes it needs its own physical document to prove it exists on its own terms.
Which triggers this fascinating act of urban archaeology.
Yes, with Juno.
Right, a resident named Juno. She lives in an older apartment building on Calder Street, which is one of the primary buildings the holding company actually wants to clear out. And Juno spends 3 agonizing months stripping 12 distinct layers of paint off her front door frame.
She does it with, what does it say, archaeological patience.
Yes, and what she discovers under that 12th layer isn't just original hardwood. She finds a small, deliberate mark carved into the grain, 1947.
C, and the C stands for Cora Finch.
The builder's daughter.
Right, the daughter of the building's original builder. Cora marked the door during a massive financial crisis in 1947, a time when the bank almost foreclosed on the entire property.
A really terrifying number.
Totally. And in that moment, she realized she wasn't just managing bricks and mortar. She was responsible for the inside of other people's lives.
That's a heavy realization.
She managed to fix the roof, saved the building from foreclosure, and she carved that mark into the wood to permanently say, I held this.
The mark is this statement of fierce stewardship. It's the building's memory declaring itself across decades.
Yeah.
Which, raises an incredibly important question for you listening right now. What are the 12 layers of paint in your own life obscuring?
Oh, that's a great question.
Right. What original intentions, what hidden marks of stewardship from the people who came before you have been painted over by just the daily grind or the relentless passage of time?
Finding that carved letter essentially sparks a quiet revolution in the building.
It really does.
Meridian, who is this character known as the neighborhood walker, a classic dandy who's walked the blocks of the drift aimlessly for 11 years. He experiences a profound shift. Prompted by Alphabet's theories, Meridian transitions from just walking the neighborhood to actively doing it. He creates the Drift Journal.
And it's remarkably unassuming. Just a tiny 16-page archive printed by Trace, the local print shop owner.
Right, they physically slide it under the doors of the building.
Very grassroots.
The whole goal of the journal is to capture the grain under the paint, to record the microscopic, vital things the city planners don't even know exist.
Like Mr. Okafor's piece.
Yes! He's a 61-year-old resident who's lived there for 30 years, and he plays John Coltrane's A Love Supreme at 2 a.m.
Such a great detail.
He writes this beautiful piece for the Journal about the specific acoustic sound of the building's plumbing pipes when they are working properly. He essentially documents the auditory signature of a community being maintained.
It becomes a testament to presence.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The response to this very first edition of the Journal.
Because it isn't what you'd expect.
Right. In a normal publication, people write letters to the editor. But in The Drift, Nagok responds to the Journal by silently walking into the print shop and leaving a warm, freshly baked loaf of bread on Trace's table.
A physical response.
Yeah, and Alphabet leaves a handwritten note simply verifying a historical fact about a street lamp. It's the community seeing its own reflection in print for the first time.
And because it's a tangible, printed object, it doesn't stay confined to the hallways of that one building. It begins to travel.
Word of mouth, basically.
Right, through the mathematics of the shareable.
Mm-hmm.
People read it, fold it up, and hand it to someone else.
Yeah.
And eventually, this highly localized neighborhood zine escapes the borders of the Drift and lands directly on the mahogany desk of Gerald.
And Gerald is on the board of the very holding company that's buying the building to redevelop it.
Exactly.
The narrative weaves the two conflicting languages together through Gerald. And what I love is he's not portrayed as some cartoon corporate villain.
Not at all.
He actually grew up in a neighborhood called The Ward, which was demographically and culturally identical to the Drift.
But the ward was gentrified out of existence decades ago.
Yeah. Gerald carries this heavy, unexamined grief of that loss. He knows exactly what it feels like to turn around as an adult and find the physical place that built your identity has just been erased.
Meanwhile, Cora Finch's granddaughter, Eleanor Finch Uduya, steps into the fray.
Right.
She's a legacy property lawyer who also gets her hands on a copy of the journal. And Eleanor intervenes to create a fourth route for the building's fate.
A fourth route?
Yeah, she proposes a legal and financial structure known as a community land trust.
Okay, let's pause and actually explain the mechanism of a community land trust, because it's brilliant, but kind of complex.
It's very smart.
Normally, when you buy a property, you buy the building and the dirt underneath it. But in a community land trust, a nonprofit entity buys and holds the dirt, the land itself, in perpetuity.
Mm-hmm.
And the residents, or in this case, a hybrid corporate partnership, own the physical building sitting on top of it. By separating the land from the building, you completely remove the speculative real estate value of the dirt from the equation.
Which is huge.
It dramatically lowers the upfront capital risk and the ongoing property taxes.
It fundamentally changes the math. It caps the resale value of the units to ensure long-term affordability for the residents, while still offering the developer a stable, albeit different kind of financial return.
Right, so Eleanor builds this complex legal runway.
Which leads to a crucial interaction in the building's lobby. Gerald finally leaves his boardroom and visits the Drift in person.
He actually goes there.
He does. And he's standing in the lobby staring at the architecture that perfectly mirrors his own lost childhood in the ward.
Mm-hmm.
And in that lobby, he meets Rome.
Little Rome.
Yeah, an 8-year-old boy who lives in the building, runs everywhere at top speed, and just devours architecture books from the local library.
And Rome shares a Japanese word he recently found in one of those books.
Motenai.
Motenai. It loosely translates to the value before the valuing.
I love that.
It's the inherent worth a thing possesses simply by existing, long before the market catches up and assigns a monetary price tag to it.
So Gerald takes this concept, tucks the journal under his arm, walks back into his corporate boardroom, looks at his fellow board members, and uses the word motenai to advocate for Eleanor's land trust.
Wow.
And he successfully changes the multi-million-dollar financial model to preserve the building.
I have to push back gently here, though.
Go for it.
Realistically, it sounds almost like a fairy tale, right? A corporate board member convinced by an 8-year-old's vocabulary word to change a massive real estate deal.
Oh, I thought the exact same thing when I first read it.
It's a bit much.
It feels too neat. But Gerald didn't suddenly grow a conscience just because a kid used a cool word.
Okay.
The text is very careful to emphasize that the land trust was a fiercely negotiated alternative. Eleanor brought cold, hard math to that boardroom.
The spreadsheets.
Exactly. She mathematically demonstrated that pursuing the land trust lowered their corporate liability and offered a viable, risk-adjusted return. Gerald simply provided the crucial translation between the two vocabularies.
Ah, so he used Montaigne as the philosophical wrapper for Eleanor's spreadsheet.
Precisely. He allowed the board to see a different kind of value that made rational financial sense within their own risk models.
That makes a lot more sense.
But legally saving the building on paper is not the end of the story. A community isn't a museum piece. You don't just put a protective glass dome over a neighborhood, declare it saved, and walk away.
Because if a culture doesn't keep moving, it stagnates into a sterilized exhibit of itself.
Exactly.
And that forward momentum is captured by Desta. She's a teenage artist in the neighborhood who sets up scaffolding and paints a massive 12 by 8 meter mural of the community's faces on an adjacent brick wall.
Such a powerful image.
When a passerby asks her what all the faces in the mural are looking at, she gives a lesson in artistic perspective. She explains they are looking toward the vanishing point. In geometry and art, the vanishing point is the spot on the horizon where parallel lines converge. It's the distant point where everything, the massive new glass tower, the old brick drift, the weight of the past, the uncertainty of the future, all converge and become the exact same size.
The visual metaphor is stunning. The act of looking toward that point is an acknowledgement.
Yeah.
The community is fully present in their current full size, even while recognizing that distant, inevitable point where all things equalize.
We see this continuous cultural evolution through young Rome, too.
Oh, definitely.
He isn't just reading library books. He creates an actual glossary for the back pages of the journal, actively hunting down words for untranslatable community feelings.
He finds words like ma, which is the Japanese concept of the negative space, the silence that is an essential part of the music. He adds komorebi, the specific dappled quality of sunlight filtering through the leaves of trees, and wabi-sabi, the appreciation of the beauty of things that are imperfect, impermanent, and show the wear of their history.
Because English failed to capture the texture of the drift, Rome is borrowing tools to build an entirely new vocabulary for his neighborhood.
And Meridian, the neighborhood walker who started the journal, he experiences a moment of profound clarity regarding this evolution.
With the painting of the bird.
Right. He has this painting of a bird in his apartment window.
Yeah.
And for 11 years, he stared at it, completely paralyzed by his inability to decide if the bird is plummeting to its death or if it's preparing to take flight.
Yeah, it's ambiguous.
But looking at what the neighborhood has accomplished, he finally realizes that falling is just an integral part of flying.
Oh, wow.
It's always mid-arc. The wings carry you into the fall, and the friction of the fall is what gives the wings their lift.
So what does this all mean? The narrative takes us on this huge journey. We start with a neighborhood passively waiting for its fate, frozen like that web browser, stubbornly pressing a broken crosswalk button.
Right.
And we watch them transition into a community actively documenting its present grain through the journal. And finally, using cold, hard math and new vocabularies to secure its future through the land trust.
It's a massive shift.
It is. The story culminates in the 13th annual CARNIVALE, the organic neighborhood block party. Alphabet pulls Meridian aside over the noise of the music and tells him it's time to pass the baton. They need to name the next editor of the journal.
And they choose 9-year-old Rome.
Which is just perfect.
What's fascinating here is Rome's own observation during that very carnival. Amidst the chaos of the block party, he watches Mukuk, the baker, kneeling in the dirt, and she's planting flower bulbs in the freezing cold of November. She knows those bulbs will not bloom until spring.
Right.
Rome realizes she's living in 2 times at once. Her physical body is enduring the November she's currently experiencing, but her mind is actively dwelling in the spring she's planning for.
That's beautiful.
And the journal itself operates as time travel in the exact same way.
Oh.
It requires living intensely in the present moment while constructing a rigorous, tangible record for a future you might not see.
It changes how you look at a city block. Which, brings me to you, listening to this right now.
Yeah.
Do you know the specific auditory creak of your own hallway floorboards? Do you know the exact shade of the original layers of paint hidden on your door frame?
Are you paying attention to that grain?
Exactly. Are you planting bulbs in the freezing November of your own life, trusting a cold ground to hold them for a spring that you can't see yet?
I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, building on what we've unpacked today. The text shows young Rome successfully translating the intricate feelings of his neighborhood into borrowed Japanese words because his native English lacked the precise vocabulary to protect them.
Right.
But what happens decades from now when Rome is an adult? When the economic models shift, the zoning laws change, and the city inevitably applies pressure again.
Because it always does.
Exactly. Will he have to invent an entirely new language to protect the drift from the next cycle of transformation? Or does the very act of constantly translating a community's soul eventually change the neighborhood itself into something else entirely?
That is a phenomenal question to carry with you. Being well-informed isn't just about reading the daily news or learning how to decipher a city planner's zoning blueprint.
No, it's much more than that.
It's about learning to identify the value before the valuing in your own world. It is about recognizing that whether you're looking at the legal structure of a land trust, the layers of paint on a doorframe, or the chaotic, beautiful, messy blueprint of a changing city, falling is just a part of flying.
You're always mid-arc.
Catch you on the next deep dive.